The silence after Taeho's song lasted for what felt like forever. The whole world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Kale stood motionless, his wide eyes fixed on Taeho with an expression no one could read. The great warlord, who had conquered planets and commanded fleets that spanned galaxies, looked like someone who had just been told that everything he believed was wrong. Finally, he spoke. "I do not understand," Kale said slowly. "Your voice was imperfect. Your technique was weak. By every measure, my performance was superior. And yet," he touched his own face and found moisture there. A single tear, the first he had shed in 8,000 years. "And yet I feel something," he continued. "Something I had forgotten existed. Something that was taken from us so long ago that we do not even have a word for it anymore." Lyra stepped forward, her own tears still falling. "That is what I have been trying to find, Kale. That is why I came to Earth. Not to insult our people, not to abandon our ways, but to remember what we used to be." Kale looked at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time ever. In all their thousands of years of being promised to each other, he had never truly seen her. She had always been just an asset, a political arrangement, a box to check. But now he saw the tears on her face, the hope in her eyes, the love that was slowly blooming in her ancient heart. And he understood. "We were wrong," Kale said. The words seemed to cost him greatly. "The Galactic Council, our ancestors, all of us. We thought that removing emotions would make us stronger. We thought that feeling nothing would help us live forever without pain." He looked up at the sky, at his warships floating like silent giants among the stars. "But what is the point of living forever if we cannot feel anything? What is the point of power if we have nothing we care about? We have spent millennia conquering the galaxy, and we have gained nothing but emptiness." Kale turned to his soldiers. They were still wiping tears from their faces, still confused by the strange sensations flooding through them. "Stand down," Kale ordered. "All forces, return to your ships. We are leaving." The soldiers hesitated. This was not what they had expected. "Sir?" one of them asked. "What about the mission? What about the human?" Kale looked at Taeho. For a moment, something passed between them. Not friendship, exactly, but perhaps respect. The respect of one being for another who had shown him something he never knew he was missing. "The human has won fairly," Kale said. "By my own challenge, by my own rules. I gave my word, and Eternals do not break their word." He stepped closer to Taeho, towering over the small human like a mountain over a pebble. "You have taught me something today, Taeho of Earth, something that all the knowledge in the universe could not teach me. You have shown me that weakness can be strength, and that imperfection can be beautiful." Kale placed his hand over his heart. "I release Lyra from our agreement. She is free to choose her own path, and I will recommend to the Galactic Council that humans be reclassified. You are not a primitive species. You are perhaps the most advanced beings we have ever encountered." Taeho blinked in surprise. "We are, but we cannot travel between stars. We do not live for thousands of years. We have wars and diseases and 100 other problems. And that is exactly why you are advanced," Kale said. "Because despite all of that, you still feel. You still love. You still hope. You still create beauty from pain and meaning from chaos. That is something we Eternals have forgotten how to do. Something we need to learn again." He looked at Lyra one last time. "Be happy, Lyra, for both of us." Then Kale turned and walked back to his ship. His soldiers followed, still touching their wet cheeks in wonder. One by one, the great warships rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars, leaving Earth exactly as they had found it. The whole planet erupted in celebration. People danced in the streets, crying and laughing at the same time. World leaders made speeches about the historic day when humanity first made contact with alien life. Scientists debated what this meant for the future of their species, but Taiho did not care about any of that. He only cared about the woman standing beside him, her violet skin glowing in the light of the setting sun. "You did it," Lyra said softly. "You saved me. You saved everyone." "I just sang a song," Taiho said with a tired smile. "A bad song, according to Kale." "No, it was the most beautiful song I have ever heard." Lyra took both of his hands in hers. "Because it came from your heart. Because it was real." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, he saw real emotion there. Joy, gratitude, wonder, and something deeper. Something she was just beginning to understand. "Tahoe," she said, "when you sent your message into space, you asked if anyone wanted to marry you. I came here not knowing what that truly meant. I came here thinking marriage was just a contract, just an arrangement between two beings." She squeezed his hands. "But now I understand. Marriage is about love. It is about choosing someone and being chosen in return. It is about feeling things together, good and bad, for as long as you both exist." A tear rolled down her cheek, but this time she was smiling. "I choose you, Taiho. I want to marry you. Not because of any law or arrangement, but because somewhere along the way, in this tiny apartment on this tiny planet, I fell in love with you." Taiho felt his own tears coming. His throat was tight, and his heart was beating so fast he thought it might burst. "I love you too, Lyra," he said. "I think I have loved you since the moment you stepped out of your ship. I was just too scared to believe it was real." They stood together on that rooftop, holding hands as the sun set over Seoul. The city sparkled below them like a sea of stars, and above them, the real stars were beginning to appear. The wedding took place 1 month later. It was a simple ceremony, held under the open sky on the same rooftop where they had first met. Taiho's friends came, still amazed that the quiet radio engineer they knew had somehow ended up with an alien princess. Lyra's ship served as the backdrop, its silver surface reflecting the lights of the celebration. There were no politicians, no cameras, no grand speeches. Just two people from different worlds, making a promise to love each other for as long as they lived. When Taiho placed the ring on Lyra's finger, she looked at the small metal band with wonder. "What does this mean?" she asked. "It means you are mine, and I am yours," Taiho explained. "It means that no matter what happens, no matter how hard things get, we face it together." Lyra smiled, that beautiful smile that she had learned how to make over the past few months. "I like that." They kissed under the stars, surrounded by cheering friends and the hum of Lyra's alien ship. It was not a perfect kiss. Taiho was nervous, and Lyra was still learning how human mouths worked. But it was real, and it was theirs. Later that night, as they danced slowly together on the rooftop, Lyra looked up at the sky. "My people will come back someday," she said. "Not to fight, but to learn. Kale has already started spreading what happened here. The Eternals are curious. They want to know more about human emotions. Do you think they can really change? After so many thousands of years?" Lyra considered the question. "I do not know. But I changed. If I can feel love after being empty for so long, then maybe there is hope for all of us." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Besides, we have plenty of time to teach them. I am immortal, remember? And you." She paused, a small sadness crossing her face. They had not talked about this yet. The fact that he would grow old and die while she stayed young forever. But Taiho just smiled and held her closer. "Let us not worry about that tonight," he said. "Tonight, let us just be happy. Whatever time we have together, long or short, I want to spend every moment of it loving you." Lyra closed her eyes and felt something warm spread through her chest. It was a strange feeling, unfamiliar but wonderful. After thousands of years of emptiness, she finally understood what it meant to be truly alive. "I love you." "Tejo," she whispered. "I love you too." "Lyra, to the stars and back." And there, on a small rooftop in Seoul, beneath the endless expanse of the universe, a human and an eternal held each other close and watched the night sky together. And it all started with a lonely signal. A desperate question thrown into the darkness. "Is there anyone who wants to marry me?" The universe had answered. And against all odds, it had given Tejo exactly what he asked for. To challenge the warships arrived on a Tuesday morning. Tejo was making coffee when the sky turned dark. He looked out his window and saw them, dozens of silver ships blocking out the sun like mechanical clouds. They were much bigger than Lyra's small vessel, covered in weapons and armor that gleamed with deadly purpose. Lyra stood beside him, her face calm but her hands clenched tight. "Kale," she said simply. He came himself. Within minutes, the ships began broadcasting a message in every language on Earth. The voice was cold and emotionless, speaking words that made humans everywhere stop and listen with terror. "People of Earth, do not be afraid. We come in peace, but we come with a purpose. One of our citizens has broken our laws by hiding on your planet. She must return with us. If you cooperate, no harm will come to you. If you resist, there will be consequences." The world went into chaos. Military forces scrambled to respond. Leaders demanded answers. People ran through the streets, screaming about the end of the world. In just a few hours, everything Tejo knew had been turned upside down. But the aliens did not attack. They simply waited in the sky, patient and silent, like predators watching their prey. That afternoon, a single ship descended from the fleet. It landed in the same spot where Lyra had first arrived, on the rooftop of Tejo's building. And from it emerged the most terrifying being Tejo had ever seen. Kale was tall, even taller than Lyra. His skin was deep blue, almost black, and covered with silver markings that seemed to move and pulse with energy. His eyes were pure white with no pupils, like two stars burning in his skull. He wore black armor that looked like it was made from shadows. Behind him stood a dozen soldiers, equally tall and terrifying, carrying weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. Kale looked at Tejo the way a human might look at an insect. "So this is the creature who stole my bride," he said. His voice was like ice cracking. A tiny, weak, short-lived animal from a primitive world. Tejo wanted to run. Every cell in his body screamed at him to hide. But he stood his ground, standing between Kale and Lyra. "She is not your bride," Tejo said, trying to keep his voice steady. "She does not belong to you." Kale laughed. It was a horrible sound, like metal scraping against stone. "You know nothing about our ways, human. Lyra was promised to me 10,000 years before your species learned to walk upright. She is mine by ancient law. Laws can change," Lyra said, stepping forward. "I did not choose this arrangement. I never wanted you." Kale's white eyes flickered with something that might have been anger. "What you want does not matter. The agreement was made by our ancestors. It will be honored." "No," Lyra said. "I refuse." The soldiers raised their weapons. The air crackled with tension. Tejo felt his heart pounding so hard, he thought it might explode. But then Kale raised his hand, and the soldiers lowered their guns. "I could destroy this entire city with a thought," Kale said calmly. "I could wipe your species from existence before your next sunrise. But that would be too easy. Too boring." He looked at Tejo with his empty white eyes. "Instead, I will give you a choice, little human. A chance to prove your worth. If you can somehow show me that you are deserving of Lyra, I will release her from our agreement. I will leave this planet in peace." Tejo blinked. You will let her go? Just like that. Just like that. But you must beat me in a challenge. A contest of your choosing. Lyra grabbed Taeho's arm. Do not trust him. Eternals are masters of every skill. No matter what you choose, he will win. But Taeho was thinking. A contest of his choosing. Anything he wanted. Kale was ancient and powerful, but he was also arrogant. He believed that no human could ever defeat him at anything. Maybe that arrogance was his weakness. Any challenge I want? Taeho asked. No matter how strange. Anything, Kale confirmed. Physical combat, intellectual puzzles, strategic games. Name your contest. Taeho smiled. It was a crazy, desperate, slightly unhinged smile. Karaoke, he said. Kale's expressionless face somehow managed to look confused. What? Karaoke, singing. A Korean tradition where people perform songs and are judged on their emotional expression. Taeho pointed at himself. You said Eternals cannot feel emotions. Well, I can. And in karaoke, emotion is everything. Lyra stared at Taeho like he had lost his mind. The soldiers looked at each other in confusion. Even the world leaders watching through their satellites had no idea what was happening. Kale was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice dripping with contempt. You want me to sing? Like a primitive performing monkey? Those are the terms. You said any challenge. Were you lying? Kale's jaw tightened. He had been trapped by his own words. Eternals did not lie. It was considered the greatest dishonor. Very well, he finally said. I accept your foolish challenge. But know this, human. I have had 10,000 years to master every art form in the galaxy. I will learn your singing and crush you with it. We will see, Taeho said. That night, the strangest competition in human history took place. A stage was set up on the rooftop, with microphones and speakers brought from a nearby karaoke bar. Camera drones floated in the air, broadcasting the event to every screen on Earth. Millions of humans watched as a regular Korean man prepared to face an immortal alien warlord in a singing contest. Kale went first. He had spent the entire afternoon studying human music, learning songs and techniques with his perfect alien mind. He chose a popular ballad, a love song known for its emotional depth. His performance was flawless. Every note was perfect. Every pitch was exact. His voice was beautiful, like an angel singing in a cathedral. The technical quality was beyond anything any human had ever achieved. But when he finished, something was missing. The song was empty. It had no soul, no feeling, no heart. It was like listening to a computer program pretending to be human. The audience was silent. Even Kale's own soldiers looked unimpressed. Then it was Taeho's turn. He stepped up to the microphone with shaking legs. He had never been good at karaoke. His friends always made fun of his voice. He was probably about to embarrass himself in front of the entire planet. But then he looked at Lyra, and he remembered why he was doing this. He chose an old Korean song, one his mother used to sing to him before she died. It was a simple song about love and loss, about holding on to hope even when everything seemed hopeless. Tae-ho opened his mouth and sang. His voice was not perfect. He hit wrong notes. He went off key a few times. Technically, it was far worse than Kale's performance, but there was something in his singing that Kale could never have. There was pain. There was longing. There was the desperation of a lonely man who had finally found something worth fighting for. Every word came from his heart, carrying with it years of solitude, years of wanting, years of hoping against hope. By the time he finished, he was crying. He did not even realize it until he felt the tears running down his cheeks. But he was not the only one. Lyra was crying too. Her violet cheeks were wet with tears. her body shaking with emotions she had never felt before. The beauty of human expression, raw and imperfect and completely real, had broken through thousands of years of numbness. And behind her, something incredible was happening. The eternal soldiers were weeping. These ancient, emotionless warriors, who had not felt anything for millennia, stood with tears streaming down their faces. They did not understand what was happening to them. They did not know why their hearts were suddenly aching. Even Kale looked shaken. His white eyes were wide, his perfect composure cracked. He stared at Taeho like he was seeing something impossible. "What? What is this?" Kale whispered. "What did you do?" Taeho wiped his eyes and smiled. "That was human emotion. That was what you lost. And that is why I win." The world watched in amazement as the mighty alien warlord stood frozen, unable to argue. For the first time in his immortal life, Kale had encountered something he could not defeat. The singing of a lonely human had done what no weapon ever could. It had touched hearts that had forgotten how to feel. The courtship, the first week of living with an immortal alien woman, was strange. Very, very strange. Taeho had given Lyra his bedroom and moved himself to the small sofa in his living room. He felt awkward sharing his tiny apartment with someone, especially someone who was thousands of years old and came from another galaxy. But Lyra did not seem to mind the small space. She said it was cozy, a word she had learned from watching Korean dramas on his television. Yes, Lyra loved Korean dramas. She watched them for hours every day, sitting perfectly still on the floor with her purple eyes glued to the screen. She said they helped her understand human emotions. She took notes in a small book, writing in a language that looked like flowing water. "Why is she crying?" Lyra would ask, pointing at a woman on the screen. Her lover just told her he loves her. That should make her happy. Sometimes humans cry when they are happy, Taeho explained. Strong emotions can cause tears, even good ones. Lyra wrote this down carefully. Fascinating. So the same physical reaction can come from opposite feelings? Yes, humans are complicated. Indeed you are. Teaching Lyra about human life became Taeho's full-time job. He showed her how to use chopsticks, which she mastered in 3 minutes. He taught her about Korean food, which she found interesting, but did not need to eat. Eternals did not require food for survival, though Lyra tried everything anyway for the experience. Her favorite was ramen. She loved the spicy noodles, even though her violet skin turned slightly pink after eating them. "This burning sensation in my mouth," she said, her eyes watering. "Is this pain?" "Sort of. But humans enjoy it. You enjoy pain?" "Some kinds of pain, yes. We call it spicy food." Lyra shook her head in wonder. "Your species is very strange." But the most difficult thing for Lyra to understand was physical affection. On her planet, Eternals did not touch each other. They had no concept of hugging, holding hands, or kissing. These things were meaningless to beings who could not feel. Taeho discovered this when he tried to teach her about dating. On Earth, when two people like each other, they spend time together, he explained. They go to restaurants, watch movies, take walks. And sometimes, why would they hold hands? Why would they hold hands? Because it feels nice. It creates a connection between two people. Lyra looked at her own hands. "Show me." Taeho hesitated. His heart was beating fast. This was ridiculous. He was a grown man, and he was nervous about holding hands with someone. But he reached out and gently took her hand in his. Lyra's fingers were cool and soft. She stared at their joined hands with intense concentration, like she was trying to solve a difficult math problem. "I do not feel anything," she said after a moment. "Just the pressure of your skin against mine." "That is okay," Taeho said, trying to hide his disappointment. "Maybe it takes time." But as the weeks passed, something began to change. Tahoe noticed that Lyra would sometimes watch him when she thought he was not looking. She would study his face while he cooked, or follow him with her eyes while he moved around the apartment. When he asked her why, she said she was observing human behavior, but there was something else in her gaze, something she could not name. They began to take walks together in the evening. After the sun went down and fewer people were on the streets, Lyra wore a hat to cover her silver hair and special contact lenses to hide her purple eyes. She looked almost human, except for her impossible grace and beauty. During these walks, Tahoe told her about his life, about his parents who had died when he was young, about his struggle to find work, about his dream of discovering alien life, which had finally come true in the strangest possible way. Lyra listened to every word. She did not interrupt or judge. She simply absorbed his stories like a sponge absorbing water. "You have experienced much pain," she said one night as they sat on a bench, watching the river flow by. "Yet you continue to hope. You continue to try. Why?" Tahoe thought about the question. Because what is the alternative? Giving up? Letting the sadness win? That is not living. That is just waiting to die. But is it not easier to feel nothing? Like my people do? Maybe, but I would rather feel pain than feel nothing at all. At least pain means you are alive. At least pain means things matter to you. Lyra was silent for a long time. Then she reached out and took his hand. Tahoe looked at her in surprise. She had never initiated physical contact before. "I think," Lyra said slowly, "I am starting to understand what you mean." That night, something shifted between them. It was small, like a door opening just a crack. But it was there. Their peaceful days did not last forever. Though 1 month after Lyra's arrival, she received a message from space. Her ship's computer picked up a transmission from the Galactic Council, the government that ruled over all the eternal worlds. Lyra's face went pale as she read the message. Tahoe had never seen her look scared before. "What does it say?" he asked. "They know I am here," Lyra said quietly. "They have been watching. And they are not happy. Why? What did you do wrong?" Lyra turned to face him. "The Galactic Council has strict rules about contact with primitive species. Humans are classified as Category 7, which means we are forbidden from interfering with your development. Primitive?" Tahoe felt a little offended. "I am sorry. That is their word, not mine. But by coming here, by staying with you, I have broken our most sacred law. What will they do?" Lyra's hands trembled slightly. "They have ordered me to return immediately. If I refuse, they will send someone to bring me back by force." Tahoe felt his heart drop. After everything they had been through, after all the progress they had made, she might have to leave? "And there is something else," Lyra continued. "Before I left my planet, I was promised to someone. An arranged marriage, decided by our leaders thousands of years ago. His name is Kale, and he is very powerful. Very dangerous." "Arranged marriage? You were engaged?" "In a way. Among Eternals, marriage is not about love. It is about power and politics. Kale wanted me because of my family status. I did not want him, but I had no choice." Lyra looked into Tahoe's eyes with a fierce expression he had never seen before. "That is why I left," she said. "When I heard your message, I saw a chance to escape. A chance to find something real, something meaningful, instead of spending eternity in a loveless arrangement." She gripped his hands tightly. "I do not want to go back, Tahoe. I do not care about their rules or their laws. For the first time in thousands of years, I feel something changing inside me. Something waking up. And I think it is because of you." Tahoe looked at this beautiful, ancient, impossible woman. She had crossed galaxies to find him. She had broken laws and defied her people, all because of a drunken message from a lonely human. He should be afraid. He should tell her to go home, to stop causing trouble, to leave him alone. But he could not do that, because somewhere along the way, without realizing it, he had started to fall in love with her. "Then do not go back," he said firmly. "Stay here. Stay with me. We will figure this out together." Lyra's eyes widened. "You would defy the Galactic Council? For me?" "I would defy the whole universe for you," Taeho said. "That is what humans do when they love someone." For a moment, Lyra just stared at him. Then, slowly, a single tear rolled down her violet cheek. She touched the tear in amazement, looking at the moisture on her fingertip like it was the most precious thing in the universe. "Tao," she whispered. I think I am feeling something." He smiled and wiped the tear away gently. "Good. That means you are becoming more human every day." Outside the window, among the distant stars, a fleet of ships began to move toward Earth. The Galactic Council was coming. And with them came Kale, who would do anything to claim what was his. But Taeho and Lyra did not know this yet. For now, they simply held each other close, two hearts from different worlds, beating together in the silence of the night. The arrival, 3 days had passed since Taeho received the impossible message. 3 days of fear, confusion, and zero sleep. He had not told anyone what had happened. Who would believe him? If he reported this to his superiors, they would think he was crazy. If he told his friends, they would laugh at him. So he kept the secret inside, where it burned like a small fire in his chest. Every night, he returned to his rooftop station and watched the sky. He searched for any sign of the visitor who had promised to come. But the stars remained silent, cold and distant as always. Maybe he had imagined everything. Maybe the soju had damaged his brain. Maybe he was finally losing his mind after so many years of loneliness. On the 4th night, his questions were answered. Taeho was making instant noodles in his small kitchen when he heard the sound. It was a deep humming noise, like a giant bee flying overhead. The windows of his apartment began to shake. The water in his pot trembled and splashed over the sides. He dropped his chopsticks and ran to the window. What he saw made his heart stop. A ship was descending from the sky. It was silver and smooth, shaped like a teardrop, and it glowed with soft blue light. It made no fire, no smoke, no explosion. It simply floated down through the night air like a leaf falling from a tree. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing Taeho had ever seen. The ship landed on the rooftop of his building, right next to his radio station. The impact was gentle, barely making a sound. The blue light faded, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then a door appeared in the side of the ship. It slid open without a sound, revealing a bright white interior. And from that light, a figure stepped out. Taeho forgot how to breathe. The woman who emerged was unlike anyone he had ever seen. She was tall and slim, with long silver hair that floated around her shoulders like it was underwater. Her skin was pale violet, smooth and flawless like porcelain. Her eyes were large and deep purple, filled with an ancient wisdom that made Taeho feel like a child. She wore a simple white dress that seemed to be made of light itself. It moved with her body like water, flowing and changing with every step. On her forehead, there was a small crystal that glowed with the same blue light as her ship. She was beautiful. Not beautiful like a human woman, but beautiful like a sunset, like a mountain, like something too perfect to be real. The woman walked toward Taeho with slow, graceful steps. Her feet barely touched the ground. When she reached him, she stopped and looked into his eyes. Her gaze was calm and curious, like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "You are Taeho," she said. Her voice was the same one he had heard in the signal, soft and musical. The one who sent the message. Taeho tried to speak, but no words came out. He just stood there with his mouth open, looking like a fool. The woman tilted her head. You asked if anyone wanted to marry you. I have come to answer. You. What? Taeho finally managed to say something, but it was not very intelligent. My name is Lyra, the woman said. I am from a planet very far from here. Your people do not have a name for it yet. In your language, you might call my kind the Eternals. Taeho blinked. Eternals? We live for a very long time, Lyra explained. Thousands of your years. Perhaps forever. We do not know. None of us have ever died of old age. This was too much information. Taeho's brain was melting. He grabbed the railing of the rooftop to stop himself from falling. Why? Why are you here? He asked. Why did you answer my message? It was just a joke. I was drunk. I did not mean it. Lyra studied him with those strange purple eyes. Did you not? Your words carried great pain, great loneliness. I heard them across the stars, and they touched something inside me. But you do not even know me, Taeho protested. I am nobody. I am just a regular human. Why would someone like you want to marry someone like me? For the first time, Lyra's expression changed. A small sadness appeared in her eyes, like a cloud passing over the sun. Because my people have lost something, she said quietly. Something that you humans still have. Something precious. What did you lose? Lyra placed her hand over her heart. Emotion, feeling love. Taeho stared at her. You cannot feel emotions? Not anymore. Long ago, when our species was young, we felt everything. Joy, sadness, anger, love. But as we evolved, as we became immortal, those feelings faded away. They became unnecessary for survival, so our bodies stopped producing them. She looked up at the stars with empty eyes. Now we live forever, but we live like machines. We think, we work, we exist. But we do not feel. We do not love. We do not understand why anything matters. Taeho felt a strange pain in his chest. Despite his fear, despite his confusion, he felt sorry for her. To live forever without feeling anything? That sounded worse than death. That is terrible, he said softly. Yes, Lyra agreed. It is. That is why I came here. Your message was different from anything we had ever received from Earth. It was not science. It was not data. It was raw human emotion, broadcast into the universe for anyone to hear. She turned back to him, and her eyes seemed to glow. Your loneliness called to me. Your desire for connection touched something deep in my ancient heart. I came because I wanted to understand. I came because I hoped that maybe, if I stayed close to a human, I could learn to feel again. Taeho did not know what to say. This was the strangest proposal he had ever received. An immortal alien woman from across the galaxy, coming to Earth because she wanted to learn how to love? I do not expect you to marry me immediately, Lyra added. I know this is sudden. I know I am strange to you. But I ask for a chance. Let me stay on your planet. Let me learn about your kind. And perhaps, in time, we can discover if what you asked for in your message is truly what you want. She extended her hand toward him. It was a human gesture, something she must have learned from observing Earth. Her fingers were long and delicate, with nails that sparkled like tiny stars. Taeho looked at her hand. He looked at her face. He thought about his lonely apartment, his empty life, his years of solitude. Then he thought about his message. Is there anyone who wants to marry me? The universe had answered. The universe had sent him Lyra. Maybe he was crazy. Maybe this was all a dream. Maybe tomorrow he would wake up, and none of this would be real. But right now, in this moment, he had a choice. He could run away from the impossible, or he could reach out and grab it. Taeho took a deep breath and took her hand. It was cool and smooth, like touching silk. A small shock of electricity passed between them, and for just a second, he thought he saw a surprise flicker in Lyra's eyes. "Okay," he said, his voice shaking. "You can stay. Let us see what happens." Lyra smiled. It was a small smile, uncertain and unpracticed, like she had forgotten how to use those muscles. But it was real. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you, Tejo of Earth." And standing there on that rooftop, holding hands with an alien woman under the endless stars, Tejo realized that his lonely life had just become very, very complicated. The lonely signal. The night was cold and empty, just like Tejo's heart. He sat alone in his small radio station on the rooftop of an old building in Seoul. The city lights sparkled below him like a million tiny stars, but he did not care about their beauty. He was alone, and he had been alone for a very long time. Tejo was 32 years old. He had a simple face, messy black hair, and tired eyes that showed many sleepless nights. He worked as a radio engineer, spending his days and nights listening to signals from space. It was his job to find patterns, to search for anything unusual in the endless noise of the universe. But in 10 years of work, he had found nothing. No aliens, no messages, just silence. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, Tejo had drunk too much soju. The empty green bottles sat on his desk like little soldiers, watching him make a fool of himself. His best friend had gotten married last week. His younger sister had just announced her pregnancy. Everyone around him was moving forward with their lives, building families, finding love. But Tejo? He was still here, alone with his machines and his silence. He laughed bitterly and looked at his equipment. The large radio transmitter hummed quietly, ready to send signals into the darkness of space. Usually, he only sent scientific data, numbers, frequencies, barring things that no one would ever answer. But tonight, the soju made him brave. Or maybe it made him stupid. He did not care anymore. Tejo leaned forward and pressed the transmit button. He cleared his throat and spoke into the microphone. "Hello? Is anyone out there?" His voice was rough and sad. "This is Earth. This is Korea. This is just me, a lonely man who cannot find love." He paused and took another drink from a new bottle. The liquid burned his throat, but it felt good. It felt real. "I have a question for the universe," he continued. "Is there anyone out there who wants to marry me? Anyone at all? I am not handsome. I am not rich. I am not special in any way, but I have a good heart. I can cook ramen. I always remember birthdays. I would be a good husband, I think." He laughed at himself. This was crazy. This was the most pathetic thing he had ever done. But he kept talking anyway. "I am tired of being alone. I am tired of watching everyone else find happiness while I sit here in the dark, listening to nothing. So if there is anyone out there, anyone in the whole universe who wants to take a chance on a lonely human, please answer, please." He released the button and slumped back in his chair. The signal was sent. His foolish, drunk words were now traveling through space at the speed of light. They would go on forever, passing stars and planets and galaxies that humans had never seen. And no one would ever answer. No one would ever hear. Tejo finished his bottle and fell asleep at his desk, his head resting on his arms like a child who had cried himself to exhaustion. The next morning, he woke up with a terrible headache and no memory of what he had done. He went home, took a shower, and came back to work like nothing had happened. His computer showed the log of the previous night's transmissions, but he did not look at it. He did not want to remember. Days passed. Tejo returned to his normal life, his normal loneliness. He ate alone. He worked alone. He slept alone. The universe continued to ignore him as it always had. But on the third night after his drunken broadcast, something changed. Tejo was sitting at his desk. eating cold rice and watching his screens with empty eyes. The usual static played through his headphones, the familiar white noise of space. He had heard it so many times that it was like music to him now, a lullaby of nothingness. Then, suddenly, the static changed. At first, he thought he was imagining it. He sat up straight and adjusted his headphones. The sound was different. There was a pattern in the noise, a rhythm that should not exist. His heart began to beat faster as he looked at his screens. The numbers were going crazy. Something was coming through, something that was definitely not natural. This was not radiation from a star. This was not interference from a satellite. This was a signal. A real signal from deep space. Taiho's hands trembled as he worked his equipment. He had trained for this moment for 10 years, but he had never believed it would actually happen. His fingers moved across the keyboard, adjusting frequencies, cleaning up the noise, trying to understand what he was receiving. The signal became clearer. And then he heard it, a voice. A woman's voice, speaking in a language he had never heard before. It was beautiful and strange, like water flowing over crystal. The words meant nothing to him, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a response. Someone was answering him. Taiho stopped breathing. His whole body went cold, and then hot, and then cold again. This could not be real. This had to be a dream, or a joke, or a malfunction in his equipment. But the voice continued, patient and calm, repeating the same message over and over. And buried within the alien words, he heard something that made his blood freeze. His name. The voice was saying his name. Tao, the woman said, her accent strange but clear. I am coming. He fell out of his chair. For a long moment, he just lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling. His mind could not process what was happening. Someone had heard his message. Someone had answered. And that someone was coming. Coming here. Coming for him. He scrambled back to his equipment and tried to send a response, but his hands were shaking too badly. What would he even say? Hello, I was very drunk when I sent that message. Please ignore it. Sorry, I did not actually expect anyone to answer. Please do not come. I was just feeling sorry for myself. Before he could figure out what to do, the signal cut off. The static returned, empty and innocent, as if nothing had happened. But Taiho knew the truth. He knew that something had changed forever. He sat in his chair for the rest of the night, unable to sleep, unable to think, just staring at the stars through his window. Somewhere out there, among all those distant lights, someone was traveling toward Earth. Someone was coming to meet him. Someone wanted to marry him. Taiho put his head in his hands and wondered what he had done.